Welcome to Biztech's Technology Show, the show where we feature tech companies across Asia and how they make a difference in the tech landscape. Now, today, we look at something a little different, esports in Southeast Asia. Now, here to tell us more about esports is Ferdinand Gutierrez, CEO and co-founder of Ampverse. Now, Ampverse owns and operates a portfolio of leading esports teams that sits in the intersection of gaming and popular culture. Now, Ferdinand, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Good to be here.
Now, Ferdinand, give us an overview to start with of what you do and how you got started in 2019.
I was basically in advertising for 20 years before I started Ampverse, working with companies like Havas. I was the CEO of Havas here in Thailand. I worked as a GM of Neo at Ogilvy in Singapore. And always been fascinated by the digital space. I started specializing in digital probably around 2007. So really, really early days. So I'm kind of used to being at the forefront of new stuff. In 2010, I built a startup called Sandbox Global. We were building social games here in Thailand. We had 5 million MAUs or monthly active users and 1 million daily active users.
Wow.
And I sold the company about 2 to 3 years later. And gaming has always been something that I felt is the future of media in a sense. I believe that more and more people are going to be gravitating towards games, and given the local landscape and given the unfortunate pandemic, you're seeing gaming rising a lot faster than I thought it would. And getting to a point where I was working at a company called Twitch, which
the global. So you were the guy in Asia, right?
Yeah, I did sales and marketing for Twitch, and I thought that there was getting back into this after a long career in advertising was something that I really wanted to do, and then decided that I think there was a really big opportunity to do more in Asia and not just be part of the media, but actually be an owner. And being such a big sports fan myself, it's almost like a dream come true to be able to own sports clubs in a sense. It's not the New York Knicks, like my favorite, basketball team. It's not Liverpool, my favorite football team, but it is our teams, and we believe in the teams that we buy, and it's a great place to be, and we feel like this is the region to do it. So I'm really excited about it.
Now, Ferdinand, one of the interesting things is your management team. Can you tell us how you guys got together as well?
Yeah, interestingly enough, two of the other co-founders are the real hardcore gamer guys, Matt Bayer and Surasak Winit. They were both ex-Twitch. They ran the Twitch operations for, I would say, 4 to 5 years here in Southeast Asia. They are the most connected guys in gaming that I know. They've been all their life in gaming. So if you don't have this connection to the community like they do, it's very difficult to do what we do. Because gamers are a community, it's built on trust. And these guys have had the trust of the gaming community for a long, long time. And what myself and the other co-founder, Charlie Bailey, we're kind of the commercial side of it, where we understand how to connect brands to gaming. So we kind of put that all together and build, a platform for us to be able to monetize on the teams that we have and all the influencers that we have, and really build, stronger content plays so that we're fulfilling, I think, the promise of esports, right? And one of the biggest issues is how do you make money on esports? And I think that's what we do best.
Okay, so and I'm going to ask you a question next in terms of that exact question. What is your business model?
Yeah, I mean, there's several different ways we do it. Obviously, the first thing that we do is we own and operate all the teams, giving us the opportunity to get better margins. If you don't own and operate your I would say the assets, it's difficult because then you're doing revenue shares, etc. So for us, when we own and operate the assets, it makes it a lot more easy for us to be able to, one, control what we do from a marketing standpoint, and two, we're able to get, again, better revenues as a result. So that's one thing. I kind of want to explain the ecosystem that Ampverse builds.
And you just took the words right out of my mouth, because that was my next question. Because, as you're talking about this now, somebody who's watching this, who's a senior business person says, hey, how does this whole black art of esports and the ecosystem work? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make it as really, really simple as possible. I think, first of all, again, we own and operate the esports teams that we buy. So whether it be Bacon Time or let's say our newest acquisition, SBTC, we own and operate them full outright. So that means we pay for their salaries, we pay for their housing, etc. The whole thing, managers, psychologists, the whole shebang. It's just like FSG owns Liverpool. We do the same
Okay.
thing, right? From there, what we do is we surround the teams because we don't just have teams, but we also try to surround them with cultural ambassadors. What I think is important for us to establish is that esports can transcend beyond just esports, but to the masses. So what we want to do is surround the teams with guys who are part of the team, but they don't play the game. So these
Okay.
guys are influencers who connect us to, let's say, music and sports and movies and celebrity, all those things that, are part of I would say Gen Z or Gen Alpha's life, and connect our teams to that. So it's important that we're not just building a sports team, we're building an entertainment team as well, right? That kind of gives you both angles, right? So their job is really to build the community and to make sure that the community is being looked after in a meaningful way. So to be honest with you, the bigger our fan base is, the better we can monetize on it. And at the last part of it, we're going to be taking a lot of the data from our communities and build platforms around it so that we can better monetize on them, whether it be e-commerce, and we'll be selling things like digital and non-digital goods.
Okay. Now, can you just give us a perspective, give us an idea of what are the different types of esports in Southeast Asia? What are the most popular? What are the most popular platforms?
The most popular, well, there's probably a couple of good titles here in Southeast Asia from a mobile perspective. If you're looking at Thailand, ROV is by far the top game. If you're looking at Indonesia and Philippines, you're looking at Mobile Legends. So depending on the market, it'll be dependent on which game is dominant. So in Vietnam, Wild Rift has got a good connection to League of Legends, so that's becoming the more popular game there. So depending on the country, you'll see different games being the dominant player. But what I see as a link between all the countries in Southeast Asia, it's mostly mobile games.
Okay, so that was my next question. Again, you anticipate that. So mobile is the dominant platform. It is not the console game.
Yeah, so only because of the audiences and the players here in the markets, right? A lot of the times to play PC games, you need to have a really good PC with high specs. And here in mobile, if you want to play Free Fire, for example, which is a game that you can play with a very low spec, you're going to get a lot more mass involved in it, right?
Right.
So if you're going to play League of Legends, you play, Dota 2, you play all the big games like Counter-Strike, you need a good computer. So I think given the fact that, in these regions, people don't make as much money as more developed markets, it's a natural progression to have more people playing mobile games versus PC games.
Now, so according to Newzoo, the Southeast Asian game market for 2021 is expected to reach something like 400 million gamers, out of which 250 million of those are on mobile devices. I mean, those are phenomenal numbers. And in terms of dollars and cents wise, last year was something like 4.6 billion. So this is already a massive market. Now, can you give us an idea of, you own teams and stuff. How much do players earn? What's the prize money for this sort of sports? And what's the revenue models like?
Well, depending on how good the players is, I think players in Southeast Asia don't make as much as in more developed markets, especially in the mobile space. You're looking at maybe $2,000 to $4,000 as what they make on a monthly basis. But we also pay for their housing, food, etc. Right? Okay. You can also look at what we do is prize winnings. Most of the prize winnings goes to the players because we want to incentivize them to win. And in terms of the business model, it's very similar to, let's say, traditional sports where we're getting sponsorship monies where they have their logos on the jerseys, just like Liverpool would have Standard Chartered. We make money from different positioning where the sleeves position versus, let's say, on the chest. We also do it where we set up ways that brands can do content with us. So we not only give you guys, give brands a logo or signage, we give them content, which in the esports space is super important to be engaged with the community. And
Okay.
for us, for our teams to be very engaged in that community that we talked about, the more content we do, the more closer they get to the players, et cetera, the better it is, because I believe in giving brands a little bit more humanity instead of just saying, look, hey, we're this team with a logo. We actually have stories. We have things that we can share with the community that's beyond just gaming, right?
And you've got some major brands that have partnered you, isn't it? You've got people like Disney and Samsung and McDonald's. Tell us has your networks really helped push this forward in terms of the traditional brands?
Sure. I mean, these guys they believe that they're reaching the next generation of consumer. At the end of the day, they got to stay relevant. And the more interesting brands that we should talk about is, like, let's say Porsche, who we did a campaign with, right?
Okay.
And why would Porsche do something with an esports team?
Yeah.
Because they say, look, they've got to stay relevant with the next generation of people who buy the cars, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the way Louis Vuitton is in League of Legends. They're saying, look, if I lose these guys, then I lose them to Off-White, I lose them to Supreme, I lose them to more up and coming brands, right?
Yeah.
So these legendary brands that we, being in a part of the older generation, feel like, oh, they're never going to go anywhere. I think they realize they could go somewhere if they don't communicate with this audience. And I think that's the main reason, right? And obviously on the second side of it, they're reaching this audience because that's where they are now. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, there's not many things that they can go to, right? And when you're at home, what do? You watch movies, you listen to music, and you play esports or watch esports or watch gaming.
So this has been the rocket fuel for esports, hasn't it?
It's helped, sure, definitely. I mean, unfortunately, for other industries, it hasn't, but for our industry, it's helped, and it's also, kind of highlighted the fact that it is the future.
Now, Ferdinand, one of the things with this industry is, at the moment, it's a little bit of a cowboy industry, isn't it? So it's a very fragmented market, a little bit informal. I think that there's a lot of competitions and leagues and stuff like that. Yeah. Is that the case in terms of market structure? And how do you see your strategy, your acquisition strategy playing into that? Obviously, it's a consolidation play.
Yeah, I mean, it's early days, right? So it's just like, what the EPL looked like in the 1930s and 40s, or what the NBA looked like in the 1950s. It's early days, and there's a lot of things that need to be sort of cleaned up, but it's also an age of opportunity for everybody. I mean, if somebody told me I could buy into Liverpool in the early days, I would. They're $1 billion business right now.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this, right? We feel like we do two things right. One, we buy assets that we feel has legs, that can be the franchises of the future. We not only look at the way they play on the pitch or on the screen, we also look at the way they build community. Because if you look at this audience, right, the fans of, let's say, Bacon Time, these guys have huge purchase power for the future, and they're already used to buying things online. So what we have to do is really just increase our fan base in order for us to monetize in the future, because we know that they're naturally open to buying things, right, online. Yeah. And at the end of the day, to be able to monetize on the future of sport, you have to know how to do it with digital goods and non-digital goods through digital distribution platforms.
Ferdinand, some of these teams are informally structured. So a couple of guys getting together, obviously they're playing as individuals, but playing together. How do you then get them to formally organize so you can buy them?
We don't actually buy teams unless they've actually set up some sort of entity.
Okay.
I know it's funny to be like, well, they have to have an entity just like any other sports or traditional sports team. So they have to set that up in order for us to buy them, because there's nothing to buy if we buy just the players, right? So
you embed all the rights, image rights, everything all into that entity, and then that's how you make the acquisition.
Well, they should have done it already. If not, that's part of our diligence process, is to see what they've done or not done, and we'll help them through that if they haven't done certain things. But on the whole, I think of our portfolio, they've been pretty sophisticated. So we've been lucky. but I think, that's what we'd like to see is more professionalism, as you're probably alluding to. There's got to be way more professionalism in the sport itself. So, getting all these things like image rights, etc., you've got to have that, right? So, that's what we do. We see a lot of the teams don't think about those things properly, and we can help them professionalize their outfit, and and hopefully they'll see the vision of being part of a big portfolio of successful esports teams, right?
I suppose that the gaming industry itself, because it's growing so quickly, these are growing pains. The gaming talent is probably realizing only now, okay, I think we need to get ourselves sorted out.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, I think it's funny. I talked to a couple owners in the pro league here for ROV, and we don't even get together as a group, just like the NBA owners would do it or the EPL owners would do it. Things like that, little things like that would help professionalize and give us a little bit more structure. Everything from player transfers and fees, etc. All that all has to be done at one point. But I think there is a strong impetus for all of us to get together more and as a group try to build something special. And I think that the promise of esports is just growing. And for us to have the future as bright as it should be, we need to start putting these infrastructures in place in order for us to really thrive as a sport.
Now, in terms of investors in the business itself. What does that look like today?
It's interesting. I mean, we've raised a few rounds, and a lot of it we've actually on purpose done it without VCs or really, more traditional, funders, to be honest with you. In the beginning, it was really about people who believed in us and believed in the industry and understands the narrative really, really well. But as we get into later stages in our fundraising, we are now getting to a point we understand what it takes to kind of get to this next round. And to be honest with you, traditional VCs it wasn't a traditional play, right? It's like, what VC will invest in Liverpool, right?
Well, not PE would. I mean, today they would. They all see the pot of gold. The pot of gold is the TV rights and stuff. But is that already clear enough in the esports space? Well, to have maybe some VCs already starting to focus on it. Because I know that in the Silicon Valley, there are specific VCs who are investing in esports.
Well, we're in this region, so we haven't really reached out to North America too much, to be honest with you. This region is very, if you look at the investment space, a lot of the VCs are looking for tech plays. They're looking for unicorns. They're looking for, something that they can say is scalable, etc. I'm not saying that esports is not scalable. I think we've got plenty of ways to do that. And I think in our next round, we're actually solving that quite well. But in the beginning, when you have to believe in buying the franchises and you have to believe in the business, it's not the same sort of sell, right? You need to show the passion of it, that you're here early days. It's like I said before, it's like buying franchises in football or the NBA in the earliest of days, right? And you're seeing that a market has nowhere to go but up. And then you say, well, yes, it's almost like a land grab per se, right? You want to get the best properties at the lowest price now.
And that's how I see it now. So I want to ask you this, Ferdinand, because you have an interesting perspective. You were in 2010, you actually did a trade sale and sold the business. So you made money in the earliest of early days.
Yeah.
How do you see this industry now, 11 years later from the time you started your first business? And what do you think were the key cultural shifts and drivers for esports going mainstream?
Yeah, well, yes, we exited the business. It wasn't the best exit, or I would have been retired by now. But what I've seen is that I think the earliest days, there was a lot of skepticism and it wasn't as easy to raise capital. However, in social gaming at the time, when Zynga, before it went public, it was very bullish.
Yes.
Looking at valuations again based on revenue multiples, and they were very, very, very frothy at the time. But once Zynga went public and their stock prices weren't so great, there was a lot more skepticism about what to invest in the space. And then what happened was the rise of mobile gaming. The guys like Candy Crush or Clash of Clans, they just sort of kind of changed the way people saw gaming. Now, what I'm seeing is it's the rise of not just esports, but gaming as a genre, right?
Okay.
If you see a lot of people don't understand the difference between gaming and esports. So esports is just a subsection of gaming. Gaming is a $150 billion industry globally. If you even think about if you do more research, some people will say it's $300 billion. It's crazy. It's crazy because it's bigger than Hollywood. It's bigger than the NBA. It's bigger than F1. It's bigger than anything you think of. The interesting thing is that given that, right, gaming in itself, that's why we're still doing the influencer platforms that we have, is because I think it's still important to be able to get to those revenue streams versus just straight up esports streams, right? The esports stream is very, like I said, it's very similar to traditional sport. But the gaming stream is like entertainment. We can build TV shows, we can build reality shows, we can do radio, there's a whole bunch of entertainment plays that's just as important as what we do from an esports perspective. If you have kids, right, you watch people play games, that's entertainment.
Yes.
You have a younger kid they're watching Roblox and Minecraft videos, right? And that is huge. I can't tell you how big that is. Having kids myself, it's huge, right? So if you think about that, right, and in esports as a subsection, I think that's what's great, is that esports is in the right space, and gaming is in an even bigger space. So it's a nice place to be.
Now, Ferdinand, what can we expect from Ampverse in the next 24 months?
Yeah, Ampverse is really going to be looking at really solidifying our position in Southeast Asia. So there'll be more news about things that we do here in this region. We believe in the region. We believe in the talent in this region. I'm hoping one day there's a global esports superstar coming out of Southeast Asia. It will put us on the map. It's almost like the way, Koreans have K-pop. We would have talent coming out of Southeast Asia from an esports perspective. You're going to see a lot more plays for us in the e-commerce or marketplace type, initiatives. I think it's important for us to, get closer to our consumers through data. So we'll be a data-driven esports company that will understand our fan base and be able to give them the coolest ways to support their teams with digital and non-digital goods. So that's probably the next couple of months from us.
Fantastic. And final thoughts from you before we end this conversation.
Sure. I'm really, really excited about being in this industry. I feel really, really fortunate. I know that these are really, really tough times, due to COVID, and there's a lot of industries that are feeling a lot of discomfort. I'm just fortunate to be in a space that's growing, and I believe that brands in the future, we'll see that there's going to be an acceleration of brands, embracing esports and gaming as a real marketing tool moving forward. And then, obviously when we get to a point where broadcast rights are going to be like the EPL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, there's only one way to go for us in this region, and it's up. And the other thing I would say is I'm also really, excited to be in the mobile space. I think that, gaming should not just be for the rich or for the fortunate. Then I love the fact that you can play games with a really, inexpensive $300, $200 phone, right?
Yeah.
And become an esports star. I love the fact that, esports has democratized the ability to be an athlete, which is amazing to me. And I just feel lucky, to be honest with you. I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, and I just want to be a positive force in the industry. And I want to help everybody who wants to be in this space fulfill their dreams.
Now, Ferdinand, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. Enjoyed it.
Now, we've been speaking to Ferdinand Gutierrez, CEO and co-founder of Ampverse, on Biztech's Technology Show. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe our various platforms. Thanks a lot for tuning in.